Lena's hand froze on the doorknob when she heard his voice behind her. "Going somewhere, Tesoro?" Her heart stopped. She'd been so careful, so quiet. The mansion was supposed to be empty. Salvatore Conti had left for a meeting downtown over an hour ago. She'd watched the convoy of black SUVs disappear down the driveway herself. But there he was, standing in the shadows of the hallway, still wearing that perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. His dark eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. I was just... The words died in her throat. He took a step closer, and she pressed her back against the door. "You were warned, weren't you?" His voice was dangerously soft. "Someone told you they were watching." How did he know? Her mind raced back to this morning, to the hurried whisper in the kitchen, the fear in the older woman's eyes. "They're watching you. Be careful." She'd thought it was just paranoia. Now she realized it was a warning she should have heeded. "Mr. Conti, I can explain." "Can you?" He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne, expensive, intoxicating. "Because I'd very much like to hear why my head housekeeper is sneaking out of my home in the middle of the night with a bag full of—" "What exactly, Lena?" Her name on his lips made her shiver. In 6 months of working here, he'd barely acknowledged her existence. Now he knew her name. Now he was looking at her like she was the most important person in the world, or the most dangerous. This story is just beginning, and what happens next will change everything. If you want to discover how Lena ended up in Salvatore Conti's mansion and what secrets she's hiding, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one to life. 3 months earlier, Lena Pierce had never heard of Salvatore Conti. She knew the name, of course. Everyone in Chicago did. The Contis owned half the city, from legitimate businesses to the whispered-about operations that made people cross the street when they saw those black SUVs rolling through the neighborhood. But Lena had bigger problems than worrying about some crime boss she'd never meet, like keeping the electricity on, like finding enough hours in the day to work her 2 jobs and still see her daughter before bedtime, like figuring out how she was going to pay for Mia's asthma medication this month when the pharmacy had already refused to fill it on credit. The morning she met him, Lena was on her knees scrubbing the marble floor of the Grandview Hotel's executive suite. Her back ached, her hands were raw from chemicals, and she was running on 3 hours of sleep. But she couldn't complain. This job paid $12 an hour, 3 more than the diner where she waitressed nights. "Excuse me." The voice was deep, commanding, and came from directly above her. Lena's head snapped up and she found herself staring at the most beautiful man she'd ever seen. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of presence that made the spacious suite feel suddenly small. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, sharp cheekbones, strong jaw shadowed with perfectly groomed stubble, and eyes so dark they were almost black. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been made specifically for his broad-shouldered frame, which it probably had. Behind him stood 3 other men, all wearing similar suits, all watching her with expressions that ranged from bored to vaguely amused. Yes, sir. I'm almost done." Lena scrambled to her feet, painfully aware of her stained uniform and the way her hair was falling out of its ponytail. She grabbed her cleaning supplies, ready to get out of his way. "Wait." He held up a hand and she froze. His eyes scanned the room, taking in the spotless marble, the gleaming fixtures, the perfectly arranged furniture. "You did all this?" "Yes, sir. I can come back if—" "No." He took a step closer, and Lena's pulse quickened. There was something predatory about the way he moved, like a wolf circling prey, but his expression wasn't threatening. It was curious. "How long have you worked here?" 3 months, sir." "And before that?" Why was he asking her this? Lena clutched her cleaning caddy tighter. "I worked at a diner on the south side. Still do, actually. Nights." Something flickered in his eyes. 2 jobs. It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. One of the men behind him cleared his throat. "Boss, we're going to be late for—" "Cancel it." The boss, oh God, was this actually Salvatore Conti, didn't take his eyes off Lena. "What's your name?" "Lena Pierce." "Lena." He said it slowly, like he was tasting it. "I have a proposition for you." Her stomach dropped. She'd heard stories about men like him, about what they wanted from women like her. "Sir, I need a head housekeeper for my estate." He pulled a card from his jacket pocket and held it out. "The position pays $90,000 a year, full benefits, housing included if needed. You'd manage a staff of 12, report directly to me. Lena stared at the card like it might bite her. $90,000. That was more than she'd made in the last 3 years combined. I don't understand. You don't know anything about me. I know you work 2 jobs to make ends meet. I know you've cleaned this suite better than anyone else on your staff has in months. I know you have a daughter. The photo in your pocket fell out when you stood up. He gestured to the floor where, sure enough, Mia's school picture lay face up on the marble. Lena snatched it up, her cheeks burning. How did you... I noticed details. It's how I stay alive. He adjusted his cuff, revealing a flash of tattooed skin beneath his expensive watch. The job is legitimate, Miss Pierce. You'd have a contract, paid time off, health insurance that would cover your daughter's medical expenses. Her heart stuttered. How do you know about the prescription bag in your cleaning cart? Albuterol. She has asthma. His expression softened fractionally. My sister had asthma as a child. I understand how expensive it can be. Lena's mind was reeling. This couldn't be real. Men like Salvatore Conti didn't offer jobs to broke single mothers out of the goodness of their hearts. There had to be a catch. Why me? Because you're thorough, you're discreet, and you need the money badly enough that you won't ask too many questions about my business. He met her eyes directly. But not so desperate that you'd compromise your principles. I saw the way you looked at me just now. You thought I was propositioning you for something else and you were ready to refuse, even if it meant staying poor. She didn't know what to say to that. Take the card. Think about it. But know that I need an answer within 24 hours. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Miss Pierce. If you accept this position, you'll see and hear things that most people don't. Things that need to stay confidential. Can you handle that? She thought about Mia's medication, about the overdue rent notices, about the future that was slipping further from her grasp with each passing day. She thought about the fear in this man's eyes when he mentioned his sister's asthma, the first truly human emotion she'd seen from him. Yes, she heard herself say, I can handle it. Salvatore Conti smiled for the first time since entering the room, and it transformed his entire face. Good. My driver will pick you up tomorrow at 6 a.m. Bring your daughter. I assume you'll need the housing. He left before she could respond, his entourage following like shadows. Lena stood alone in the gleaming suite, holding a business card that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She had no idea that she'd just made a deal with the devil himself, or that in 3 months she'd be running for her life. The Conti estate was unlike anything Lena had ever seen. Set on 20 acres in Lake Forest, the mansion rose from manicured grounds like something out of a movie, all stone and glass and perfectly symmetrical beauty. The driveway alone was longer than her entire street back home, lined with trees that probably cost more than her car. Mia pressed her nose against the window of the Mercedes that had picked them up that morning. Mama, is this a castle? Something like that, baby. Lena's voice was tight. She still wasn't sure she'd made the right decision, but when she'd called the number on Sal's card yesterday, a woman named Maria had answered, confirming every detail he'd mentioned. The contract had been delivered to her apartment by courier 2 hours later, reviewed by a lawyer Maria had sent at no charge to her. Everything was legitimate. Almost too legitimate. The driver, a stern-faced man who'd introduced himself simply as Marcus, pulled up to a side entrance. Mr. Conti is waiting for you in his office. Maria will show you and your daughter to your quarters first. Maria turned out to be a warm, heavy-set woman in her 60s, with kind eyes and an accent that spoke of generations in Sicily. She embraced Lena like they were old friends, then bent down to Mia's level. And who is this beautiful little girl? I'm Mia. I'm 6. Mia held up 6 fingers seriously. Do you live in the castle too? I do. I'm the cook here. Do you like cookies? Mia's eyes went wide and Lena couldn't help but smile. What do you say, sweetie? Yes, please. Maria winked at Lena. I'll bring some up after you've settled in. Come, let me show you where you'll be staying. The housing turned out to be a 3-bedroom suite on the 2nd floor of the east wing, complete with a full kitchen, living room, and 2 bathrooms. The main bedroom had a king-sized bed, the kind Lena had only seen in catalogues. Mia's room was already furnished with a white daybed, a desk and, impossibly, a shelf full of children's books. Mr. Conti had these brought in yesterday, Maria said, noticing Lena's expression. He remembered you mentioning your daughter was 6. Lena ran her fingers over the spines. They were all quality hardcovers, classics mixed with popular new titles. Someone had put thought into this. I don't understand. Why would he? Boss takes care of his people. Maria's voice was gentle but firm. You work for him now, which means your family. Your daughter too, you'll learn that about him. But he barely knows us. He knows enough. Maria moved toward the door. Get settled. His office is on the first floor, West Wing. When you're ready, Marcus will take you there. After Maria left, Lena helped Mia unpack her small bag of belongings. Her daughter chattered happily about the books, the big bed, the castle, but Lena's mind was elsewhere. She kept thinking about Sal's words at the hotel. You'll see and hear things that most people don't. What exactly had she gotten herself into? An hour later, Marcus knocked on their door and led Lena through a maze of hallways to a heavy wooden door. He knocked twice, then opened it without waiting for a response. Miss Pierce, boss. Salvatore Conti sat behind a massive desk in an office that looked like it belonged in a museum. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with leather-bound volumes in English and Italian. A fireplace crackled despite the warm September day. But what caught Lena's attention was the bank of monitors on one wall, each showing different views of the estate grounds. Security cameras, dozens of them. Sal stood when she entered, buttoning his suit jacket in a gesture that seemed automatic. Today he wore navy blue, and Lena noticed the tattoo on his neck more clearly, an intricate design that disappeared beneath his collar. Miss Pierce, I trust your quarters are satisfactory. She struggled for words. They're more than I expected. The books for Mia were nothing. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Lena sat, acutely aware of how out of place she felt in her target dress and worn flats. Sal resumed his seat, steepling his fingers as he studied her. I'm going to be frank with you because I believe you can handle it. This estate runs on discretion and loyalty. You'll manage the household staff, oversee the cleaning and maintenance schedules, handle any issues that arise. But you'll also occasionally notice irregularities. Men coming and going at odd hours, packages being delivered that you won't inspect, conversations you'll pretend not to hear. His eyes were intense. I don't expect you to be involved in my business, Lena. I expect you to be smart enough to stay out of it. She should have been terrified, should have grabbed Mia and run, but something in his directness, his refusal to lie to her, made her nod. I understand. Do you? He leaned forward. Because once you're in this world, it's not easy to leave. I'll protect you, that's a promise. But you need to follow the rules. What rules? Don't go into the West Wing after 10 p.m. without permission. Don't ask questions about the men you see coming and going. Don't share anything you learn here with anyone outside this house. And most importantly, his voice dropped. If anyone ever approaches you, threatens you, tries to use you to get to me, you come to me immediately. Do you understand? Why would anyone? Because that's how this world works. Something dark flickered across his face. People have tried before, they'll try again, but I protect what's mine, and as of today you're under my protection. What's mine? The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered her, but instead it made her feel safe, which was insane considering who he was. Okay, she said softly, I'll follow your rules. He studied her for a long moment, then reached into a drawer and pulled out a small black phone. This is yours. It has one number programmed into it. Mine. If you ever need me, day or night, you use this phone, only this phone. Lena took it, the device warm from his hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He stood, and she realized the meeting was over. Maria will introduce you to the staff tomorrow. Tonight, get some rest. And Lena? She paused at the door. Yes? Welcome to the family. That night, after Mia was asleep in her new bed, Lena stood at the window of her suite, looking out over the grounds. In the distance, she could see the main gate, the guardhouse, the fence that surrounded the entire property. She'd traded one cage for another, she realized, but at least this one had silk sheets, and her daughter's medication would be covered. She pulled out the black phone Sal had given her, running her thumb over the smooth surface. One number, a direct line to one of the most dangerous men in Chicago. She should have been afraid. Instead, she felt the strangest sense of anticipation. The real question was, anticipation for what? The first few weeks passed in a blur of routine and luxury Lena had never experienced. She woke at 5 a.m., made sure Mia was ready for the private car that now took her to school, then spent her days managing a household staff that treated her with respect she'd never received in her previous jobs. Maria became her closest ally, teaching her the unspoken rules of the estate, the preferences of boss, and the hierarchy among the security team. And there was always security. Men in dark suits stationed at every entrance, cameras covering every inch of the property, cars that swept the grounds at regular intervals. At first it had unnerved her, but Maria explained it simply. When you have what boss has, you need protection. Lena saw Sal rarely in those first weeks. He was gone more than he was home, and when he was there, he closeted himself in his office with men who looked as dangerous as he did. But she felt his presence everywhere, in the perfectly organized house, in the way the staff moved with military precision, in the expensive coffee that appeared in her suite every morning, exactly how she liked it. Despite never having mentioned her preferences to anyone, he was watching, always watching. The thought should have creeped her out. Instead, it made her feel protected. Everything changed on a Tuesday in October. Lena was in the main library, high on a ladder dusting the upper shelves, when she heard voices in the hallway. Male voices, speaking rapid Italian. She didn't speak the language, but she recognized anger when she heard it. She should have left, should have followed Sal's rules about staying out of his business, but something in the tone made her freeze. Testing our patience, Salvatore. My answer is the same as it was last month, Marco. That was Sal's voice, cold and controlled. I don't partner with men who traffic women. You're being sentimental, it's just business. Get out of my house. You think you can refuse the Benedetti family? We own half the judges in this city. The sound of movement, fast and violent. Lena's hand tightened on the ladder as she heard a body slam against the wall directly outside the library door. Touch me again and you'll lose the hand. Sal's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried more menace than any shout. I don't care who your family is. I have principles and you violate every single one of them. Now get the fuck out before I forget that you're technically under guest protection. Footsteps, then silence. Lena remained frozen on the ladder, her heart pounding. She'd just heard Salvatore Conti, head of the Chicago Mafia, refuse a partnership because it involved trafficking. She'd heard him defend principles she'd assumed men like him didn't have. You can come down now, Lena. She nearly fell off the ladder. Sal stood in the doorway, tie loosened, jaw tight. His eyes found hers across the room, and she saw the warning there. I know what you were doing. He stepped into the library, closing the door behind him. How much did you hear? She could lie, should lie, but something about his expression told her he'd know. Enough. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Then, surprisingly, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. And what do you think now, regret taking this job? No. The word came out before she could think about it. His eyebrows rose. No? You stopped them. Whatever they wanted to do, you stopped them. Lena climbed down from the ladder, her legs shaky. That doesn't sound like a bad man to me. You'd be surprised how bad I can be when necessary. But his voice had softened. He moved closer, and Lena caught that scent again. Expensive cologne mixed with something darker. I need you to forget what you heard. I didn't hear anything. The corner of his mouth twitched. Good answer. He reached past her to grab a book from the shelf, his arm brushing hers. The brief contact sent electricity through her body. Do you read? The question caught her off guard. When I have time. Not much lately. What's the last book you read for pleasure? The Count of Monte Cristo, years ago. His expression shifted, genuine interest replacing the hard mask he usually wore. Revenge done right. Fitting. He handed her the book he'd grabbed. Try this one. It's about a man who thinks he's a monster discovering he's something else entirely. Lena looked at the cover. Beauty and the Beast, but an older version she'd never seen. I know how this story ends. Do you? His eyes held hers. The beast stays a beast, Lena. He just finds someone who sees past it. The moment stretched between them, charged with something she didn't want to name. Then Sal's phone buzzed, shattering the spell. He stepped back, the walls going up again. I have a meeting in the city. I'll be back late. He moved toward the door, then paused. Lena? Yes? Thank you. For not running. He left before she could respond, and Lena stood alone in the library holding a fairy tale and wondering what the hell was happening to her carefully controlled life. That night, after Mia was asleep, Lena sat in her room reading the book Sal had given her. It was well worn, the margins filled with notes in elegant handwriting. His handwriting, she realized. Comments on the plot, observations about the characters, questions about the nature of redemption. She ran her fingers over the words. Can a monster ever really change, or does he just find someone who accepts what he is? Her phone, the regular one, not the black one, buzzed with a text from her friend Rachel from the diner. "Girl, where have you been? Haven't heard from you in weeks." Lena stared at the message, then at the luxurious room around her, then at the black phone on her nightstand. She thought about Sal's intensity, the way he'd looked at her in the library, the heat that had sparked between them. She was in dangerous territory, and for the first time in her life, she didn't want to find her way back to safety. She picked up the black phone. One number, a direct line. Before she could second-guess herself, she typed, "Thank you for the book." The response came 30 seconds later. "You're still awake. Couldn't sleep. Neither could I." A pause then. "The notes in the margins, did you see them?" "Yes." Another pause, longer this time. "What do you think? Can a monster change?" Lena's fingers hovered over the screen. This was crazy. She was texting with her boss, her Mafia boss, about philosophy and redemption at midnight. She should stop, should maintain boundaries. Instead, she wrote, "I think maybe he doesn't need to change. Maybe he just needs someone who sees him as he is." The response took longer this time. "And if what he is dangerous, everyone's dangerous in their own way, at least with you, I know where I stand." 3 minutes passed. Lena was about to put the phone down when it rang, an actual call from his number. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Lena." His voice was rough, like he'd been holding something back. "I need you to understand something." "Okay. I'm trying very hard to be professional with you, to maintain distance. Not..." He stopped and she heard him take a breath. "But when you say things like that, when you look at me the way you did in the library today, it makes it very fucking difficult." Her pulse was racing. "Why do you need to maintain distance?" "Because you work for me. Because you have a daughter who depends on you. Because you deserve better than getting tangled up with a man like me." His voice dropped lower. "And because if I let myself get close to you, I don't think I'd be able to let go." Lena closed her eyes, feeling the truth settle in her bones. This wasn't just attraction. This was something bigger, more dangerous, more inevitable. "What if I don't want you to let go?" Silence. Then, "Don't say that unless you mean it, Tesoro, because I don't do anything halfway." "Neither do I." She heard him exhale, sharp and sudden. "Then we're both in trouble." "Yeah," she whispered. "We are." Neither of them hung up for a long time after that, just breathing in sync across the connection, both knowing they'd just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. When Lena finally ended the call and lay back on her bed, she was smiling despite the flutter of fear in her chest. She'd just made a second deal with the devil, and this time she knew exactly what she was getting into. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. Sal started eating breakfast with her and Mia before school, making the little girl laugh with terrible jokes, while his security team stood uncomfortable watch. He asked about Lena's day, remembered small details she mentioned, left flowers in her suite with notes that simply said, "Thinking of you." Maria noticed, of course. "Boss hasn't been this happy in years," she told Lena one morning while they prepped for a dinner party. "Not since his sister died." Lena's hands stilled on the napkin she was folding. "I didn't know he'd lost someone. Angelina, 10 years ago." Maria's eyes were sad. "Asthma attack. She was only 16. Boss wasn't here. He was handling business in New York. By the time he got back..." She shook her head. "He blamed himself, said he should have been there, should have protected her." Suddenly, so much made sense. The way Sal had looked when he mentioned his sister's asthma at the hotel. The specialized medical supplies in the estate security office. The fact that Mia's room had an emergency inhaler mounted on the wall. He was still trying to save his sister by protecting someone else's daughter. That evening, after the dinner party ended and the guests left, Lena found Sal in his office, tie discarded, hair disheveled, staring at the monitors. He looked exhausted and beautiful, and somehow vulnerable despite the gun she could see in the shoulder holster he'd forgotten to remove. "Knock, knock," she said softly from the doorway. He looked up, and his expression transformed when he saw her. "Come in, please." She closed the door behind her and sat in the chair across from his desk. "Maria told me about Angelina." His jaw tightened. "Did she? I'm sorry. I can't imagine how hard that must have been." "It was my fault." The words came out flat, emotionless. "I wasn't there. I was building an empire, making money, proving I was untouchable. And while I was doing that, she was dying alone." "That's not..." "It is." He stood abruptly, moving to the window. I had all this power, all this money, and I couldn't save the one person who mattered most. Lena rose and crossed to him, touching his arm gently. He tensed, but didn't pull away. You were young. You didn't know. I should have known. He turned to face her, and the raw pain in his eyes made her chest ache. I should have been there. Yes, you should have. She held his gaze. But you weren't, and you can't change that. All you can do is be there now for the people who need you. Like you. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek. Like Mia. We don't need you to save us, Sal. She leaned into his touch. We just need you to be honest with us. I'm falling for you. The confession came out rough. That honest enough? Her breath caught. Yes. It's not smart. It puts you in danger just by association. His other hand came up to frame her face. But I can't seem to stop myself. Then don't. Lena rose on her toes, closing the distance between them. Don't stop. The kiss was inevitable. His lips met hers, soft at first, testing, then deeper as she opened for him. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close, and she melted into him, feeling safe and dangerous and more alive than she had in years. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sal pressed his forehead to hers. Stay with me tonight. Just to sleep. I want to hold you. Okay, she whispered. They lay together on the leather couch in his office, her back to his chest, his arm around her waist. He was warm and solid, and for the first time since her husband had left her pregnant and alone 7 years ago, Lena felt like someone actually had her. She was drifting off when she heard Sal's voice, soft against her hair. I'll keep you safe, Tesoro. You and Mia both, I promise. She believed him. That was her first mistake. The warning came 3 days later from the last person Lena expected. She was taking laundry down to the basement when she encountered an older black woman she'd never seen before, wearing a housekeeper's uniform and carrying a mop bucket. The woman's eyes went wide when she saw Lena. You're the new one, the woman said, her voice low and urgent. The one boss is sweet on. I'm the head housekeeper, yes. Listen to me. The woman glanced around nervously, then stepped closer. They're watching you. The Benedetti family. They know about you and the little girl. They're planning something. Lena's blood ran cold. How do you know this? Because I've been here 2 weeks, and nobody's noticed I'm not supposed to be here. The woman's expression was fierce. I'm not really a housekeeper, honey. I'm a nurse. Marco Benedetti sent me to gather information, find weaknesses, and you— She shook her head. Your boss's weakness now. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a daughter too. And I know what these men are capable of. She pressed something into Lena's hand, a piece of paper. That's Marco's private number. He's going to call you in the next day or two, make threats, try to use you against boss. When he does, you need to tell boss immediately. I will, thank you. Be careful. The woman picked up her mop bucket again. And honey, don't trust anyone. Not even the people boss trusts. She left before Lena could ask what she meant, disappearing into the shadows of the basement like she'd never been there. Lena stood frozen, the piece of paper burning in her palm. She should have gone straight to Sal, should have shown him the number, told him everything. But something the woman said nagged at her. Don't trust anyone. Not even the people boss trusts. What if there was a mole in Sal's organization? What if telling him would put Mia in more danger? She pocketed the paper and headed back upstairs, her mind racing. That night, as promised, her regular phone rang with an unknown number. Lena's hands shook as she answered. Miss Pierce. The voice was smooth, educated and cold as ice. My name is Marco Benedetti. I believe you met one of my associates today. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. You spoke with Clara in the basement. She's quite good at her job, which is gathering information on Salvatore Conti. A pause. Information like his new pet housekeeper and her adorable daughter. Terror flooded Lena's system. Leave my daughter out of this. That depends entirely on you, Miss Pierce. I have a simple proposition. You're going to plant some surveillance equipment in Salvatore's private office. In exchange, I'll ensure that neither you nor little Mia are harmed in the inevitable war that's coming. And if I refuse, then I'll have no choice but to demonstrate to Salvatore what happens when he rejects the Benedetti family's offer of partnership, starting with the people he cares about. The threat was clear. You have 24 hours to decide. I'll be in touch. The line went dead. Lena sat on her bed, phone in one hand, the black phone Sal had given her in the other. She knew what she should do, knew what Sal had told her to do if anyone threatened her, but Mia was asleep in the next room. Innocent, vulnerable Mia, who'd finally found stability and happiness. If Lena told Sal and he went after the Benedettis, what would stop them from retaliating against a 6-year-old girl? She looked at the black phone, Sal's direct line. One call, and he'd protect her. He'd promised. But promises didn't stop bullets. Promises didn't save little girls from men who trafficked women and children. Lena made a decision that would change everything. She didn't call Sal. Instead, she responded to Marco's next text message with 2 words: "I'll do it." The surveillance equipment arrived the next day, hidden in a delivery of fresh flowers for the estate. Lena found the small device tucked inside a rose stem, along with instructions that made her stomach turn. Plant this in Conti's office, behind the family photo on his desk. Tonight. She had the opportunity that evening. Sal was in the city for a meeting, wouldn't be back until late. Maria was giving Mia cookies in the kitchen. The house was quiet, the security team focused on the perimeter. Lena stood in Sal's office, the tiny bug in her trembling hand, staring at the photo he kept on his desk. It was old, faded. Sal as a teenager, with a beautiful girl who had to be Angelina. Both of them smiling like they had no idea what was coming. She reached for the frame. "What are you doing?" Lena spun around so fast she dropped the bug. Sal stood in the doorway, still in his coat, his expression unreadable. I was just dusting." "You're lying." He stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. His eyes went to the tiny device on the floor, then back to her face, and badly. Lena felt her world crumbling. "Sal, I can explain." "Can you?" He bent down and picked up the bug, examining it with the careful attention he gave everything. When he looked up at her again, his expression was cold. "Who sent you?" "No one sent me. I work for you." "Then why are you planting surveillance equipment in my office?" His voice was deadly quiet. "Who are you working with, Lena?" "I'm not—" Her voice broke. "They threatened Mia. Marco Benedetti called me, said if I didn't do this, he'd hurt her. I didn't know what else to do." Something flickered across his face, not quite anger, not quite betrayal. "And you didn't think to tell me? You don't understand. I told you explicitly that if anyone threatened you, you were to come to me immediately." He set the bug on his desk with careful precision. "But you didn't trust me enough to protect you." "That's not true, isn't it?" He turned away from her, hands clenched. "I've spent months trying to keep you safe. I've had extra security on your daughter's school, tracking devices on both of your phones, guards watching every entrance to this estate. I've done everything in my power to make sure the Benedettis couldn't touch you, and the first time they make contact, you keep it from me and agree to betray me. I was scared. You should have been." He spun back around, and now she saw the fury beneath his control. "You should have been terrified, Lena. That's why you were supposed to come to me. That's why I gave you that fucking phone. I thought—" Tears streamed down her face. "I thought if you went after them, they'd hurt Mia to get back at you." His expression softened fractionally. "Do you really think I'd let that happen?" "I don't know. I don't know how this world works, Sal. I don't know the rules or the protocols or—" She wrapped her arms around herself. "All I know is that someone threatened my daughter, and I'd do anything to keep her safe, even if it means betraying you." Silence stretched between them. Then Sal moved, crossing the space in 2 strides and pulling her into his arms. She collapsed against him, sobbing into his shoulder while he held her tight. "You're not betraying me," he murmured against her hair. "You're trying to protect your daughter. I understand that. But Tesoro, you have to trust me. That's the only way this works." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I know." He pulled back just enough to cup her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "But we're going to do this my way now. You're going to plant that bug exactly where Marco wants it, and then we're going to use it to destroy him." Lena's eyes widened. "What? He made a mistake threatening you. He made a bigger mistake thinking I wouldn't find out." Sal's expression was cold as ice. "Now I'm going to make him regret both." Over the next week, Sal orchestrated one of the most brilliant operations Lena had ever witnessed. He fed false information through the bugged office, details about a weapons shipment that didn't exist, meetings that were never scheduled, weaknesses that weren't real, all while his real operations happened elsewhere. Lena watched him work with a mixture of awe and terror. This was Salvatore Conti at his most dangerous, calculating, ruthless, always 3 steps ahead. He'd transformed her betrayal into bait, using Marco's surveillance against him. He'll make his move Friday night, Sal told her Thursday evening. They were in his office, the real one, in the West Wing where cameras didn't reach. He thinks I'll be vulnerable, thinks he knows my security patterns. He's wrong. What's going to happen? Justice. His eyes were hard. The kind men like Marco understand. Friday came too quickly. Sal had Mia taken to Maria's sister's house in the suburbs for a special sleepover. Extra security appeared on the grounds, men Lena had never seen before. The atmosphere was tense, expectant. At 9 p.m., the power went out. Lena was in her suite when it happened, instantly transported back to her old apartment, where the electricity got cut off regularly. But this was different. This was intentional. Through her window, she could see figures moving in the darkness, approaching the house. Her door burst open. One of Sal's guards, Paolo, who always smiled at Mia, grabbed her arm. "Boss wants you in the safe room now." "What's happening?" "Benedetti's are making their move." "Come on." He dragged her through hallways she'd never been in, downstairs she didn't know existed, to a reinforced door hidden behind a wine rack. Inside was a small room with monitors showing every angle of the estate. Sal was there, jacket discarded, gun in his hand, watching the screens with lethal focus. When he saw her, some of the tension in his shoulders eased. "You're safe." He pulled her close, pressing a quick kiss to her forehead. "Stay here with Paolo. Don't come out until I come get you." "Sal, I mean it, Lena, stay here." He met Paolo's eyes. "Protect her with your life." "Yes, boss." Then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness with a group of his men. Lena watched the monitors, her heart in her throat, as figures converged on the estate. What happened next was fast and brutal. Sal's men emerged from hiding spots the Benedettis didn't know existed, surrounding the invaders with military precision. There was no gunfight, no Hollywood shootout, just cold, efficient capture. On the main screen, Lena watched Sal approach Marco Benedetti himself, who'd been foolish enough to come personally. The audio was off, but she could see Sal speaking, Marco responding with what looked like threats. Then Sal said something that made Marco's face go white. Two of Sal's men dragged Marco away. The whole operation took less than 15 minutes. When the lights came back on, Lena found herself shaking. Paolo kept his position by the door, face impassive, gun still drawn. "Is it over?" she asked. "For now." 20 minutes later, Sal appeared in the doorway, blood on his knuckles but otherwise unharmed. Paolo left immediately, closing the door behind him. "Mia?" Lena asked. "Safe, still at Maria's sister's house. We'll pick her up in the morning." He crossed to her, and she saw the exhaustion beneath his adrenaline. "It's done, Tesoro. Marco won't be threatening anyone again." "What did you do?" "What I had to." He caught her hands, examining her like he was checking for injuries. "I made sure he understood that you and Mia are under my permanent protection, that anyone who touches you is signing their own death warrant." "Sal..." "No." His grip tightened. "You need to understand something, Lena. I don't do anything halfway, remember? When I say I'll protect you, I mean it absolutely. When I say I'm falling for you, I mean I'm already gone." He pulled her closer. "You're mine now. You and Mia both. And I protect what's mine." The possessiveness should have scared her, should have sent her running. But instead, wrapped in his arms, still trembling from fear and relief, Lena felt something entirely different. She felt home. "I'm sorry I didn't trust you," she whispered. "You're learning." He kissed her softly. "And I'm learning too. Learning that loving someone means letting them be afraid, make mistakes, find their own way to trust." He rested his forehead against hers. "We'll figure it out together." "Together," she repeated. "Together," he confirmed. That night, they slept in the safe room, unwilling to let each other go. And when morning came, when they picked up Mia from Maria's sister's house, and the little girl launched herself into Sal's arms, calling him Mr. Sal with absolute trust, Lena knew she'd made the right choice. Not in keeping secrets, not in trying to handle everything alone, but in eventually choosing to trust the man who'd promised to protect her. The man who'd kept that promise against impossible odds. The man she was falling hopelessly, dangerously, inevitably in love with. 2 years later, Lena stood at the window of the bedroom she now shared with Sal. Not in the guest suite, but in his private quarters, where morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. The estate had changed, or maybe she had changed. Mia was 8 now, thriving in her private school, chattering in English and Italian with equal fluency. She called Sal Papa without prompting, the title earned through countless bedtime stories, school plays attended and promises kept. He'd adopted her officially 6 months ago, making legal what had been true in their hearts much longer. In the garden below, Lena could see Sal teaching Mia to plant tomatoes, both of them dirt-smudged and laughing. He looked up as if sensing her watching, and even from this distance she saw the love in his expression. Her phone, the regular one now, the black one retired, buzzed with a message from Rachel. "Still can't believe you married a literal mafia boss." "Living the fantasy, girl." Lena smiled. It wasn't a fantasy. It was complicated and real, and occasionally terrifying. Sal still worked in shadows, still made decisions she didn't always agree with, still carried violence in his hands. But he also made her coffee every morning, left notes in her books and held her when nightmares woke her. He'd given Mia stability, love, and a father who'd die before letting harm touch her. He'd given Lena partnership, passion, and a future she'd never imagined possible. The warning the woman had given her in the basement that day still echoed sometimes. "They're watching you." But now, Lena understood that the watching went both ways. She'd learned to navigate this world, learned when to be soft and when to be steel. She'd become not just Sal's wife, but his true partner, the person he trusted most. Maria knocked on the doorframe. "Mrs. Conti? The charity board meeting is in an hour." Mrs. Conti. Even after a year, the name still made her smile. "I'll be ready in 20 minutes. Boss wants to know if you'll have lunch with him and Mia afterward." "Always." After Maria left, Lena touched the window glass, watching her family in the garden. Her daughter with dirt under her nails, her husband with love in his eyes, their life built on trust hard won and promises kept. She'd been warned they were watching. She'd been told it was too late. But maybe too late wasn't a warning. Maybe it was exactly the right time. This story has reached its ending. If it touched your heart in any way, leave a like and share it with someone who loves emotional, intense stories like this. New stories arrive soon. Until next time.